Walker Buehler talking sliders. He's also talking a September 1 return date that he set. Also, how about a possible World Series matchup, right? And, obviously we got to play the game where, each division is wide open. Each league is wide open, right? Like you've got Atlanta in the National League. You've got a couple other teams getting hot. The Mets are getting hot aside from what happened in Colorado. And in the American League, too, you've got a bunch of teams that are playing really well. But Dodgers-Rays was a really exciting weekend set to watch. So we want to grill you here. But first, you got to walk us through what we're drinking, man. You're excited for the showcase, huh? What's going on? Rubbing your hair.
So the first few weeks of this, right, we've done like some pretty good stuff. I won't lie to you. I've brought you guys really good stuff, stuff that anyone listening, like if you want kind of what bourbon should be like, it's probably, the first four that we got. This is kind of a pretty cool example of something different, right? So this is called Ancient Age. This is an $11 fifth, $18 handle. So I would like for you guys to give it a go.
Yep, I've got it.
So what I will tell you is essentially this Ancient Age, $11, is the same mash bill. So it's made out of the same things as this, which is Bland's, which is one of the best in the world. So what you have here is one is very young, one is very old. And so it's kind of cool to see the difference in what happens with this stuff. Essentially, bourbon goes in as moonshine and then comes out as this dark stuff, right? So even in 3 years, this went in looking like moonshine. Then in 10 years or 12 years, whatever it is, it comes out darker. Okay. So what you're going to see here, it's going to be a little rougher around the edges, but it is kind of a cool way to learn how bourbon's actually made and why all these pappies and things like that are aged 15, 20 years are so sought after and kind of hard to find and things like that. That's the expression I was looking for. Yeah.
Okay. We took a sip for those that are listening, but it's different. I don't know how to describe it. So the question I would have is the big difference in price just the aging of it mostly? Like
think about it. If you had one of these barrels in your house, right? Just one. How much would you charge someone to keep it in your house for 12 years?
It's fair.
Right. So they're, all these distilleries have to build these giant warehouses and they have to be pretty, not temperature controlled, but they have to be somewhat temperature controlled. And, they store 10, 20,000 barrels at a time for 10, 15 years. Right. So that's why these aged bourbons are so much more expensive. And I mean, you can see the difference and why it's so much easier to drink these nice ones, right? Or these older ones, but what goes in there is pretty much the same.
So also, like, in terms of availability, I've never sought this out. I think understandably so after my first taste of it. I'm sorry. But, I mean, how available is this, right? Because
I think you could probably go get this at any Rite Aid in the country. Or CVS or whatever, right? Because they can turn it around every 3 years. They put that in the thing, it waits 3 years, and then it's ready to go. Compared to 10 years or 15 years where it's really hard to get this stuff.
You know what this is? I'm not sure if you ever did it at Vandy, but like this feels like the Bartons of bourbon.
Yeah.
Okay.
We drank Evan Williams. I used to drink Kentucky Gentleman growing up, was one of my favorites. But I will tell you, in terms of like putting something with Sprite, right? If you're going to mix bourbon, like there's no need to go get a nice bottle of anything and mix it. Like just get whatever you can and you'll be fine.
It's interesting because it's like harsher, but it's also like a little sweeter at the same time.
Well, you can taste like the same notes, right? Like Bland's is traditionally kind of known as like a vanilla-y bourbon. Like it's in there. It's just not in there quite as fully as the other one.
It kind of like goes.
I'm kind of mad at you for showing us so many nice things and then giving us this.
Yeah, you should have eased us up into better stuff. He gave us like the fire right away, and then just
we were talking sliders. I threw a breaking ball. It is what it is.
I see what you did there. All right, we're going to do sliders at the end, and we've had a great time doing those. We did a bat breakdowns, and then we did a fastball breakdown last week. We're going to do sliders at the tail end of this conversation here. But first, there were some written pieces, and we saw SNLA talking about the set date that you have that you're targeting is September 1. I guess just kind of like a status report on where you're at and what checkpoints you want to hit, kind of like by each date if you have those.
Yeah, I mean, as of right now, first bullpen should be around June 20th, somewhere in there. That September 1 is a pretty ambitious date. I would say second Tommy John coming back in 12 months and a week is pretty ambitious, but I think that was kind of interesting just because it was perceived as a set thing or something that if I'm not back by September 1, I'm not coming back kind of thing. Right. Like that's my goal. And listen, I don't want to have any arrogance in this, but the reason I think that a lot of us succeed or get to play in the major leagues as long as I have been fortunate to do it is because like I can set goals like that and expect them of myself. And, if I'm not back September 1, like it's no sweat off my back, to be honest with you, but I want to be back September 1. So, it's kind of one of those goals that I tell myself and everyone can tell me it's impossible, whatever, until it's not, then it's not. And I'm going to be back. So, we'll see.
Yeah. So the one follow-up I have on that is like, there's this interesting balance of, wanting to push yourself and get better and stronger as fast as you can without also pushing it too far and maybe undoing some of that recovery that you've already been able to do. How do you toe that line? Because I imagine that's got to be hard. You got to probably rein yourself in a little bit sometimes because I'm sure you're so eager to push it. How do you balance that?
That's why we have agents. I'm going to push until the cows come home. I don't care. Like I'm going to try and go as good as I can. And then I have to have guys like my agents tell me that I'm being an idiot. And that's kind of the push and pull of this game. Right. And, listen, I've been with the Dodgers this would have been my 6th year. I love being in LA. I want to win in LA as much as possible. And I'm trying to enjoy and be a part of every game I can be there. Right. So, missing 140 games sucks and I don't like it. So I want to be back. I want to wear the uniform. But I guess the agent side of the game tells you that I want to wear the uniform for another 5, 6, 8, 10 years. So it's kind of that weird balancing act. And I wish I had a better answer for you, but it really is. It's kind of everyone that supports me and my wife and my family and my agents and the organization and whatever. You have to find a way to make really good decisions for everyone. And I think there's always kind of one of those. There's always a middle ground that probably works out better for everyone.
And that's the thing, like your entire support circle, A, would love to see you pitch in the 2023 World Series, but B, also wants to see a bust in Cooperstown with you wearing a Dodger hat, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, obviously that's a lofty goal, but like everybody wants what's best for you. Yes, in the short term for sure, but like also in the long term, you know what I mean? So I'm sure you're dealing with that. Aram, I know, wants to bring up another guy that's, spent a lot of time away from the field and is working his way back this week. But, man, I mean, let me just say that would be badass if you were back this September. Because, we talk about Harper like this. You had the surgery, 3rd week of August last year? That'd be 12 months?
In a week,
Come on.
Well, my first one, I think it was 370 days. I think my first one was. So, I've done it before. I don't know. And
when you come back,
I guess the flip side of it too is like you can come back from the surgery and be really healthy, but we've seen it with guys come back and they come back in the middle of the year and they're just not really the same guy. But then the next year they're back, right? Like I'm not going to come back and not be in a position where I feel like I can really contribute. And I think that's one of the biggest things. I in no way think the Dodgers would do this, but I don't want to come back and they just put me on the roster because of what I used to do. I want to be able to contribute and be, valuable.
Yeah. It makes sense. And from the proponent of like getting stretched out and that whole approach as well, like it's one of those things where what's the process of like getting yourself to the point where you can now throw 3, 4, 5 innings? Because, a lot of people always like to float the idea of like, oh, he can come in and contribute in smaller spurts. But, I know that you are interested in being able to go 4, 5, 6 innings when you come back. Like, is there any difference there in the timeline of like, I could come back and go a couple innings, which, you know, I know you want to start. So like, how does that work in terms of your timeline as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think the state of baseball kind of helps me in that respect too, right? In that there is openers, there is guys that start and throw 2, 3, 4 innings, and you know, if that's the role that I need to be in, then we look at it and see if I'm ready to be in that role, right? If I'm good enough to do that. I guess the difference in my first and second surgery is that I've played enough in the major leagues that I know, like, I guess it's the hitters aren't going to necessarily tell me in my rehab starts and things like that. I'm going to know if my stuff is going to work.
Yeah.
Right. So like, if it's not, then I think I'm doing a disservice to everyone. But if I feel like it is, and I feel like I can keep pushing, then we start looking at talking to the doctors and the rehab people and figuring out what's feasible, what's intelligent. That is the one thing that the Los Angeles Dodgers probably do better than anyone, is like, we continuously kind of make really intelligent decisions and go get the right guys off the, you know, get the right free agents, get this, get that. Like, we make good decisions, and I don't think how we handle my arm or me coming back is going to be any exception to that rule.